Good morning, this is Thomas from thomasfromauthor.com. Today is Monday, August 24th. It's 6:30 a.m. On Saturday night I published my latest essay. It's called, in my essay collection, Deconstructing Pride, and it's called Tolerance, Acceptance, Glorification. And I will put a link to that essay in the notes, so you can look it up. It's also on my Instagram page and it's on my website, and I will put the link on my Instagram page and on my Facebook page. And I hope you will read it. And if you find the time, I would like you to leave me a comment and tell me what you think of it and all the things I say. And in the next coming weeks, I will work on my new essay. It will be centered around the concept of internalized homophobia, or the idea of internalized homophobia, what I find problematic about that. But it will also be about the sort of group sex culture that has developed within the gay world, and I will shed some light on that, and I will use that essay to sort of lay out how people rationalize and justify these behaviors. It's not just the sexual encounter, but the drug use, the time for which it goes on, and all the sort of criminality that surrounds it, and also in the risky behaviors. So I will work on that in the upcoming weeks. Today I want to talk some more about about gangstalking, because I haven't talked about it in a while, and I think it is important to keep talking about it. Because what is gangstalking? Gangstalking is basically, it's not gang as in criminal gang. It's just people ganging up on other people to harass and intimidate them, and this is done in group form. But what is special also about gangstalking is that there are individuals or groups of individuals working together on all sorts of different levels. Oftentimes they don't even know each other, but they often know of each other, and they also know that other people or other groups of people are also abusive towards a person, or have hold certain grudges against a person, or sabotage him, and are very hostile to him, and they often take advantage of that or make use of that. And this is also why gang stalking can take on such severe forms, because its objective is to basically isolate the victim, to sabotage his life in many ways, and to also to take away his sense of privacy. And the reason is that either to make that person sit inside all day and not going out of the house, but also drive people basically into suicide. This is what it is about in the end. People who are the victims of this are usually referred to as a targeted individual, because a lot of time when I told especially mental health professionals about this, they said, well, yeah, but why doesn't this happen to me? When I say, for example, they oftentimes they're constantly on my phone, they hack your phone, they hack your computer, your laptop, everything. Why doesn't that happen to me? Yeah, because you're not a target. But as soon as you're a target, it is not hard to hack someone's phone or computer. Even you can have all those antivirus software and everything, but in the end, it is not difficult to hack someone, especially not then when you use Wi-Fi and everybody uses it. So as soon as you're a target, you are fucked, because these people can basically find out all the information about you. You know, oftentimes they also ruin people financially. I mean, I've seen on social media people coming by or passing by that happened to them. A woman, for example. I will put a video of her up on the website. But when it comes to my gang stalking experience, there are all sorts of different levels. There, you know, some I don't understand and some I do. You know, I've been talking about, you know, my direct surroundings and how my family and my ex-boyfriend also helped the gang stalking, basically. I mean, and I'm safe to say that. I mean, for example, my ex-boyfriend's task was, I mean, from the moment I met him, I had the idea that he was sent by other people to befriend me and to become my boyfriend, and I mean, and that always got confirmed by his behavior until this day, basically. But also within my own family. I mean, I told you the gang stalking started about, you know, 11, 12 years ago when my father died. I mean, it started at exactly that moment. So I constantly got into trouble for things I even did before that. But at that point, I got in trouble. And so I ended up in hospitals, in psychiatric facilities. I mean, stuff like that. And but 11, 12 years before that, you know, my first boyfriend was basically murdered by what I call the piggy network. Because soon after that happened, you know, I got invited to these two people, these Tom and Berto guys, with their sex house, and they basically made that clear to me. And that spooky, you know, experience I had there where I passed out, and then at some point I woke up and there were all these I was surrounded by these naked men who didn't speak to me, and then I was like, where do these men come from all of a sudden? And that was a really strange experience. But you see, and I also think that has something to do with the gang stalking, because in deep down they know that I know what happened, so I'm a danger to these people. And up until recently, you know, Tom and Berto have been, you know, instrumental in like intimidating me. I know they send people to my house and stuff like that. But I also sense in a way that they are scared of me. You know, I can also sense that with my own family, because, you know, after my boyfriend died, my mother was very busy getting me locked up in a psychiatric facility. She managed to get me because I got really depressed afterwards, so I was not able to do anything anymore. I was only lying on the couch sleeping. I was practically not able to do anything. So she went to a psychiatrist with me, and then I got some diagnosis, and then that got me into a psychiatric facility for the first time, and that was what my mother was busy with. But my mother didn't really take care of me. She just wanted to get rid of me. She wanted to get me locked up and stuff like that. And after that, I did not have contact with I barely saw my mother for the next 10 years, because, you know, I knew these people were bad news, because even people within my own family warned me, you know, against my own family, warned me for my own family. They said, no, you should keep your distance from these people, implying that, well, he didn't say it directly, but these people are bad, these people are evil. And later my mother, after the gang stalking, the severe gang stalking started like 10 years ago, my mother and my sister found a way back into my life. And, you know, and later, especially my mother, she helped the gang stalkers. You know, the gang stalking, especially on the higher level, they use a lot of illegal immigrants to harass and intimidate people. And one illegal immigrant got very close to me. And I have a feeling he is also linked to that psychiatrist later in that psychiatric facility I told you about. At some point I said, like, I cannot see this guy anymore. I ended up in trouble. I ended up in a hospital. And then I said, no, I don't want to see that guy anymore. That guy is dangerous. So my mother, for the next 2 days, tried to convince me, talk to me. And she was there all of a sudden. And out of the blue. And then she was trying to convince me that guy is a good guy and he wants the best for you and everything else. So I went along. At some point I said, okay, then let him in. So they kept the Gangstalking network close to me. And that illegal immigrant was also later the reason I left the city, because I was so afraid. But that was also a trap, because then I was trapped to go live with my mother, basically. And she is very hostile towards me. And that, got me into, a lot of trouble later on. But here you can see how instrumental these people are. Also my ex-boyfriend saw that I was constantly getting into trouble, and once in a while he would call me. And then usually I wouldn't even tell him about this, but when I told him about it, he just couldn't care less. And I also had the impression always that I wouldn't say he knew what was going on, but he also didn't really mind what was going on, if you know what I mean. At some point he said, when that happened to me with that illegal immigrant that was basically there to harass and stalk me, he said, well, yeah, I mean, this is normal now. In Paris and in London, these things are quite normal now. Yeah, I know. You can watch it online. A lot of even very young people become the victims of gang stalking, and and these are not like hardcore drug addicts or, crazy people. And so to that extent, he was right. But he also never did anything, to help me or to say, okay, let's do something more together. You need to be protected. No, I was not protected. Also not by my family, although they acted. And when they did come to talk to me or to supposedly help me, they only did that to extract information from me, so that they can either, at home play the victim, or they can pass information about me. And because my family members and they were also instrumental in smearing me or telling really untruthful things about me. So they would take thing that was truthful, and then they would add stuff to it that were not true. So they were all instrumental, all my siblings, my mother, in smearing me, and they basically do it until this day. I mean, and that is so unbelievable, and it is very hard to figure out how to protect yourself against that. Because at some point, like 2-3 years ago, I was like, okay, I cannot leave the house any longer. I really can't. So I left the house like only once or twice a week, because at some point also the intimidation got bad and worse, and I had really bad nightmares, and I mean, up until this day, I mean, my mother keeps on intimidating me. So for example, she will send me messages on WhatsApp for my birthday with, sort of written in sort of code language, as if she cares, congratulating with my birthday, and saying stuff like, oh, my love for you has only grown in the past few years and stuff like that. And this is how they do that. And I was also always amazed that how these people, can get away with that. I mean, these people have an incessant need to present themselves as helpers, as good people, but they are not. They are the opposite. And when you realize that this has basically gone on your entire life. I mean, it is sort of. Now I feel relatively secure. Now I'm okay. I haven't used substances in a very long time, and so I can see these things more relaxed now. So I'm not that scared any longer. But for many years, I had to endure these people. And the only thing you can do basically in the presence of these people is keep your mouth shut. Just, you have to say as little as possible, because everything they say, they will, they always need information they can work with, and they can turn into something else. So it was always a good thing that I just always kept my mouth shut. I almost didn't say anything to them. And I think that was a very wise thing to do. Yeah, and it's not only the smearing of you, as I said, it is also, isolating you from anyone else. And that's basically what the smearing is for. So nobody dares to touch you. Then they take away, and that is even the most, almost the most horrible thing is that they take away your sense of privacy. In the last psychiatric facility I was, they did that too within that psychiatric facility. So they constantly stood around you. You did not even have privacy in your own little room. They were constantly in your room. They were constantly asking you indiscreet questions, like stuff like that. They make you lose every sense of privacy, because that in the end will make you, lose your will to live. You're isolated from everyone and you have no privacy, and that is the mechanism, and then they also sabotage everything you want to do. And that is why it's also important to keep your mouth shut when you're surrounded by these people. Never ever defend yourself, because that is also dangerous and a trap. And then I always wondered, why do people engage in such behavior? What is it that they do this? Because that is very hard to figure out. On some level, people want me dead because of what happened to my first boyfriend, that they wanted to basically force me into prostitution. From the age of force me or convince me to do that from the age of 16, which I didn't do. And stuff like that. So it could be a problem. So some people want you dead for that. But on the family level, or your ex-boyfriend, they have more or people around you, they have these petty reasons. They want something you possess, but they cannot have it. But I don't know, in some weird way or fucked up way, they think that by harassing you and isolating you and getting me to be entirely theirs, they can get it. Or you, oftentimes in my life, I've encountered this many times. So for example, I would refuse sex with someone, or someone was interested in a relationship with me, and then I refused. And then I was always amazed at the length these people would go to. These were people I barely knew. So people, you barely know, and then they make all this effort to smear you, to cause you trouble, for what? So this is a recurring thing in my life, from people I barely know. So that I know that there are a lot of people, especially in the place I lived before, that held a lot of grudges against me. So yeah, okay. So I wanted to give you a little update, or a little recap of what we discussed on the Gangstalking. I will try and talk about it some more in the upcoming weeks, and keep that topic alive, also for myself. So thank you for listening. Have a nice day, have a nice week. Bye bye.